Mm-hmm. 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 Wagwan. Move these like this. Yeah. 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 Yo. That doesn't work. Yeah, come live if you wanna come. What you want to talk about? It's a good jelly. It's a small one though. Done already? Dirt. This one. This one will be fat and heavy. Those on the keto diet. Nah. Shout out to all my East African brothers and sisters. Wagwan. Shout out to all the people from Yard. Mm, yeah. I put Plandemic on here yesterday and it locked off my thing. Did I lock it off?
Hey Shaka, how you doing? I have some questions I wanted to get to you. So I got turned off on my last live with you, and my one question was, is there a way to find out about your ethnicity without taking the DNA test?
Um, if you were a descendant of people who were enslaved, then based on your last name, there would be property records. So
Oh,
uh, some of my friends, they found the ships that their ancestors were brought over on,
okay.
where they were from, and were able to locate the area, and then from the name that was taken from them to find out the original villages that they were from
Okay.
in Ghana, Nigeria, Benin. That's kind of the only way because the genetic pool that they're using isn't diverse enough. So they're just like, yeah, you're,
Yeah, like whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a bit
'Cause
difficult.
like honestly, I'm trying to go to like more family reunions in order for me to go find out like exactly who I am. Cause like I see people with like their flags and stuff like that whenever I read their bio, and like they're always like so proud of like their ancestry. So I'm just trying to find out exactly who I am, cause
Mm.
like I'm still young and stuff. My second question was you talk about like black people just going back home, just like going back to like Africa and stuff. You said Ghana's a good place, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm really trying to save up money so that way I could just like move my family and stuff to just like go to Africa, like specifically Ghana, because it's just like I can't see myself or just like growing up and just like having kids just raising in America. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So my third question is, it's actually like an interesting one. What kind of conversation would you have with Jim Carrey? Because I know you make posts about him, and I'm just like, you really want to meet him in real life and just have like a conversation and an interview with him.
I would speak to him about his white experiences
Yeah.
of, being on the other side of viewing black racism. It was actually black people that gave him his first movie break. So
Ah, I never knew.
he, yeah, so he is somebody who kind of, I think, understands that. And
Mhm.
as a white person, just as like a man, you've been in many situations where there's men being sexist.
Yeah.
That's stuff that you would never really even tell women. I
Mm.
want to, in Hollywood,
Yeah.
is him being on the white side of it, but understanding the bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't want to understand uh, where he thinks the use of digital and visual imaging or imagery is going for human beings. Because being in the center of Hollywood, you kind of get a lot of the overt messages and subliminal messages. And
Mhm.
watching a movie, for instance, having done a film and photography course, you would watch a movie differently, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being in Hollywood for 30 years and knowing what casting directors do, knowing what the overall message is, and especially knowing what the political outcome or political agenda is of a movie. I would
Yeah.
like to what good he thinks movies have done and what harm he thinks movies. I just want to ask him questions about that
Yeah,
world.
man. Just get your joint on. All right, so like two more things. One of them is how'd you get into poetry? Because I'm like, bro, like you're Chakabars for like a reason. Like, bro, you have bars in your name. Like you just go off, just start making a post and just start like getting into your rhythm.
I mean, that wasn't why I was called Chakabars. It was because I did lots of pull-ups on the pull-up bars, and
Oh, that's smart. That's smart. But yo, man, the last thing I want to say to you is like I'm about to vent right now, but like I just want to let you know you are so pivotal to like not only me, but just like everybody else is like really trying to go ahead and fight and just like live their lives, just like really exploring their blackness. And I feel as though for you, you're so much more than just like, a public figure I would see on Instagram. Like in a sense, you're my teacher, bro. Like you're my fucking mentor. And I feel like I'm about to cry right now because like literally this is like third time's the charm, just trying to like get on live with you, bro. I mean, I
yeah,
know you have like a lot of people just like, saying like you're this, that, and the third, but just like honestly, like I just feel as though I don't want you to get censored, and also I don't want you to go anywhere because like you're just really pivotal, and I want to meet you one day. Actually, like in a couple years, like I just want to meet you in real life and just order to learn more about you because I feel as though like you are a really amazing individual, and I feel as though like I just want to save up my bread and like play smart and not get caught up so I could actually help you build schools and stuff because it's like I know what you stand for, and you're not like the rest of these other so-called black leaders that is just like using stuff for exploitive game and also for like selfish game. And like I literally save a whole lot of just like the advice that you give, the posts that you give. I'm learning from that. I literally screenshot it and like video recorded like that one thing that you were saying, just like move to Ghana, like CoinTel Pro, this, that, and the third. So I just want to let you know, man, like I appreciate you so much. I'm about to cry right now, but I just had to get that
don't
off my chest, bro.
waste your tears on me, but respect. And I'm sure if you make it to the motherland, and I'll see you there because that's where I'm going to be. I'm done with the West.
Yo, dead ass, man, you got my promise. I'm gonna let you go, man. I know you got the live and stuff, but I'm gonna catch up on your previous lives with Dr. Aris and Dr. Latham as well too. But peace. I'm gonna see you in a couple years, bro.
All right, respect. And Black Power. Check this. This book is called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Um, I'm going to bring somebody in. I'm going to read to them. Let's bring you in.
Peace, peace.
Work one.
How's the day going, brother?
Yeah. Have you read this book? It's called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Tell me about it. I've never heard of it before.
Um, it's basically a book about psychology of oppression. Let me read a bit of it.
Okay,
Oppression,
cool.
overwhelming control, and idiotic. It is nourished by love of not life. I'm reading this in regards to the black people who are being killed by the police, right? And just by white because of race. The bank of a based on a mechanistic, static, naturalistic, spatialized view of consciousness. It transforms into receiving objects. It attempts to control thinking and action. It leads women and men to adjust to the world and inhibits their creative power. When their efforts to act responsibly are frustrated, when they find themselves unable to use their faculties, people suffer. This suffering due to impotence is rooted in the very fact that the human equilibrium has been disturbed. But the inability to act causes people, which also causes them to reject their impotence by attempting to restore their capacity to act. But can they, and how? One way is to submit and identify with a person or group having power. By this symbolic participation in a person's life, men have the illusion of acting, when in reality they only submit and become a part of those who act. Populist manifestations perhaps exemplify this type of behavior by the oppression, who, by identifying with charismatic leaders, come to feel that they themselves are active and effective. The rebellion they express as they emerge in this historical process is motivated by that desire to act effectively. The dominant elites consider the remedy to be more domination and repression, carried out in the name of freedom, order, and social peace. That is, the peace of the elites. Thus they can condemn logically, from their point of view, the violence of a strike by workers and can call upon the state in the same breath to use violence in putting down the strike. Education is the exercise of domination. Education as the exercise of domination stimulates the credulity of students with the ideological intent, often not perceived as educators, of indoctrinating them to adapt to the world of oppression. This accusation is not made in the naive hope that the dominant elites will thereby simply abandon the practice. It is objective to call to the attention of true humanists to the fact that they cannot use banking educational methods as the pursuit of liberation, for they would only negate that very pursuit. Nor may a revolutionary society inherit these methods from an oppressive society. The revolutionary society which practices banking education is either misguided or mistrusted of people. In either event, it is threatened by the specter of reaction.
That's deep. It was kind of breaking up in the beginning, but what I got from it is that there's definitely a system put against Black people to keep them oppressed and to keep them in a state of conditioning at a cyclic level, you know what I'm saying, that gets passed down from one generation to another. And
all people, but Black people in particular.
yeah. Black people in particular, because I mean it's clear to see they don't give a fuck about Black people, you know. And I've seen something that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and they don't give a fuck about Native people in general.
No, they care less about Native people than they do about Black people.
Yeah, like that shit's scary, bro. Like my grandfather was born on a reservation, and he told my grandmother
Hmm.
that our people are dying. Within 100 years, probably our people will be an extinct. You know what I'm saying? Page in history, put in a museum somewhere. A kid will be walking by and see, oh yeah, that's what a Native American looked like,
Mm.
and we won't be around. Like, like for example, like because the way the world works when it comes to Native American women is it influences them to not keep reproducing their genes stronger with Native American men, with that melanin dominant gene. It makes them want to marry a European man. It makes them want to you know what I mean? Like when the Spaniards came in and conquered my grandpa's side of the family in Mexico, these women, you know what I'm saying, after like severe levels of raping and conditioning, their mothers taught them, you go ahead and marry that Spanish man. You go ahead and be nice to that man. If you do what he wants you to do with him. If he wants to marry you, marry him. Like the man would come to the house, the woman would be 13, 14 years old and tell the mother, "Oh, I want to take your daughter as my wife." She would just give it to him.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And that shit has in a futuristic way conditioned the future to the point where my mother, that's all she wanted. She completely disliked her people. And my
Mm.
grandparents saw this shit. And luckily I was raised by them. You know what I'm saying? To really get knowledge of who I was indigenously. But, you know, it's sickening. It's sick. And you know, for Europeans that like to say, oh, we're all one, you know, we do need to be mixing. We do need to be having babies more with each other. I mean, it really doesn't matter because the Caucasian gene is recessive and the melanin gene is dominant. So if you mix, the European gene is gonna be out of here by year 3000 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's gonna be very small, but you know, there's an agenda set behind that so that the blood can be mixed in, but it's not, it's deeper than the blood. It's so the nature can thrive even in the avatar of somebody that's melanin. You get what I'm saying? And it's scary, bro. Like I think about that shit all the time, and you know, native people worldwide, from China to Native Americans, have benefited from observing how black people have become resilient and resistant towards government oppression. You know what I'm saying? Like I saw a post that when the whole Black Panther movement was going on, people in Hong Kong that were getting oppressed by their governments were like holding up signs of like Huey P. Newton saying we stand for black power, black and yellow power type shit. You know what I'm saying? So you know, I feel it's important that we come together as Native people. Like,
When
if I go
when
ahead.
CIA killed Patrice Lumumba, who was the first democratically elected president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1961, the Chinese, actually in Beijing, the Communist Party of China, were holding rallies to decry the CIA and to decry the West because they murdered the democratically elected leader, who was essentially somebody who was advocating for all people power. And when Angela Davis was arrested, women in Somalia, they were in solidarity with her. And I think the thing about oppression is oppression anywhere is oppression everywhere. People who are oppressed here identify with people who are oppressed here. And it was Hitler who looked at what the British and the Spanish and the French did to the First Nations people in North America, and out of that he created concentration camps. He was in celebration of the reservations to the degree that he used. But the thing is, the only way out of this is not, you know, we have to resist to survive, right? But the only way out of this is group economics. It is being able to employ your own neighborhood, because shouting and marching and begging, there's a great quote by a man called Frantz Fanon, and he said that the benefits of power become obsolete when you have to ask for it from your oppressor, because it infers that they've given it to you, and nobody ever got power by asking for it. They took it, or they just stood in their own sovereignty and said, we have power, and this is what it is we're going to do. So when you have all of these people who are running up and down, you know, North America saying, we demand our rights. Well, Martin Luther King, he was an advocate for civil rights. Malcolm X, why Malcolm X intelligent. And inalienable human civil rights are acquiescing your power to being a civilian member of the Civitas. The Civitas is a corporate body which is owned by the corporation of the United States, which means that when they're killing black people who are civilians, who are begging for civil rights, they're just terminating property. There's nothing you can do, because the state owns those people as so literally into verbal and structural contracts that are based on them being property and not realizing it, so that when they're like, we demand our rights, we demand our freedom, you gave your rights away. Now you want them back. What rights do you want? Do you understand the law? Do you understand legalese? Do you understand the contracts that you've entered into verbally and or by being a person? So nobody's really asking for their sovereignty. What they're asking for is to choose which master they have. What they're asking for is, you know, we're on a plantation, we live in a zoo, but I just want things to be a little bit better. That's what they're not asking for change, right? They're asking for
They
reform.
think that's change.
Pardon?
They think that's change.
Well, they don't even think it's change. They want the same system, but they just want a reform of the system. So they want the same thing, but they just want things just tweaked a little bit better for their benefit. They don't want a new system. And so because I'm not with it, I'm not with, like, for me, blacks in America are the most people on the face of the earth. They're shucking and jiving, and they are almost like brainwashed to the point where I put up a post earlier saying that black people are ambassadors for their own murders. Like where you have, you know, Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman. Zimmerman got made into a celebrity. He sold the gun that he bought for $350 for $250,000. Zimmerman was still walking around. You have all these gangbangers in the hood talking about, you know, they'll clap on an N-word and whatever. But when Zimmerman was walking around for weeks, he got arrested a month after he killed Trayvon. The same as this that happened. Then he got arrested. Then he got off. Then he became a celebrity, and we started wearing hoodies and carrying packets of Skittles. Like, what's his name got killed, and we started doing hands up, don't shoot. Now, the last brother who's just been killed, and everybody's like, let's go for a jog. Like, are you fucking high? Like, are you actually high? So I'm just like, yeah, you lot do whatever it is you want to do, but don't ask me to do.
You're just giving these media outlets a good story to cover.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything. You know, and my mind of revolution when I see.
Why is it kicking him out? Rashad, where are you? Alright, well, Request again. I can't see you. Bring somebody a second. Diddy needs to call me. And
Hi. Oh my God, I feel so great to be on here on live. I'm from
Wagwan.
New York City. I have a question. So you know how Ahmaud Arbery was recently killed, and you just mentioned like the best solution was the jogging. I feel like that's bullshit because to be honest, there's so many like division, division in the United States, division amongst the people. Everybody has like an egoistic like type of like hunger, like it's all for me, it's not for you. And I honestly just think that when people are in a economic kind of like constraint, it's kind of hard for them to like think beyond. It's like they can only see from what they know. So it's like the proper solution is like not giving money to corporations that don't support what you believe in, but nobody is doing it. People are just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go for this, but then they're not doing anything to change it. So it's just like, how can I help people that are my age? I'm 21. See different, because I know like raising consciousness is not really gonna fix anything. So it's like, what can we do to solve? Can we unify? What can we do like to to make things get clearer?
Um, Economic liberation. You need to start businesses, own the businesses, and then take money from your businesses and pay politicians to enable favorable policies for black people. You need to lobby politicians. You need to also employ your own people, create your own healthcare plans for them, build your own schools and institutions, have your own police force and own military. As long we're not outnumbered, we're just out organized. As long as we are out
Right.
organized, we'll always be able to be divided and conquered. When you start, you might be the sister that gets, I don't know, 20 million young people on email and get them all organized in a way that hasn't ever been done. Like, for instance, I have 800,000 people on Instagram. I don't have their emails. I don't have access to their data. I can't speak to them off Instagram. So when they want to censor it, I just have to be censored. That's
Mm.
it. So it's about creating your own system. Like London Real did the biggest, it's called londonreal.tv, or London Real TV, did the biggest live stream in human history with 1.3 million people on live stream before what's his name came out. 6ix9ine came out yesterday and did a few hours ago and did the 2 million live stream. He
Right.
did 0.3 million on live stream with a man called David Icke, and they were talking about the pandemic.
Mm.
So they care and they want to be aware, but he had to create his own platform to do that because
Right.
YouTube is off. So, you know, that might be your calling, but it's definitely organization and it's definitely gainful employment.
Mm. I'm also part of this organization that's called Coalition for Concerned Medical Professionals. It's actually the only organization that I know that follows the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
Hmm.
They're number 3 for goodness and wellness. And what they do is they just take strictly donations. And what they do is they get doctors to donate their time to people who are Americans and they're low income, but their income is too high to reach that certain like like that certain box to get the health care. And then like the doctors volunteer, they help them with that. That's a solution for the healthcare system. But I feel like big pharma is just like the worst of the worst. They don't care. So it's just like I'm just volunteering in that because I truly stand for what they stand for. They look into like the equity and the justice system when it comes to like the healthcare and stuff, and that's just amazing. It blew my mind when I heard about this organization. And every day I'm proud, but it's just outdated. Like by outdated is like, they do stuff like with paper and stuff. And I'm trying to find like a way to maybe make it known. Like, like put stuff, the resources that they have, amazing when you're there in person, like online or somewhere, so it could like, like be known. Like like, you know, start like the unification, you know, expand it, because it's just starting. It just started in 1976 with the farm workers back in Long Island, because they were all diagnosed with I forgot the name of the disease.
Man, I don't know what is going on with this thing. She did I go on goodie, but cut off.
My fault, bro. Hey, wait.
Yo,
Yo. Hey, yo, what's
fuck.
poppin'? Hey, it was good. What's good?
Yeah, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Where you there?
You said what?
Where are you?
Oh, my house?
I mean, which place in the world?
Phoenix, Arizona.
You know, the desert.
It's good, bro. It's lit.
Arizona's lit. You need to be in Nigeria or Ghana, then you can tell me it's lit.
Well, it's kind of hot over here.
I know it's hot, but it's
Yeah,
dry.
it was like 100 degrees today.
Yeah, I know it's hot, but it's dry.
Yeah. What are you eating? What are you eating? Oh, that's lit. You just chilling on the island or something?
Yeah, right now I'm in
Wow, that's
um I'm in Thailand.
oh shit. He really chilling, bro.
Yeah, just working out life, you know. So where are you, when are you next going to Africa? They're kicking out everybody. Um, because he did work in Somalia with Ben Silla. No, I did work in Somalia. Ben Silla didn't come, but if you want to come and speak, then you're welcome to. I don't know what was said. Mm. Yo, nobody can hear you.
Is it? Oh, okay. Hi. I don't
Good.
know if you remember me.
Should I?
Yeah, you should.
Why?
Because I'm Mawana, the one who wants to work for you.
Did you DM?
What'd you say?
Did you DM me?
No, you told me to talk to Axel, but he still said, wait, I can't hear you.
Did you message Axel?
Yeah, but he said that no one, like nothing was available at the time.
Keep messaging him. Something's gonna open up. We're still building our team.
Okay. But this time I wanted to ask you something more personal
Go for
about,
it.
okay. I have sickle cell, and I wanted to ask you, like, what do you know about it? What's your advice about more holistic remedies?
For sickle cell.
Mm-hmm.
Sickle cell anemia, a deficiency in iron. Sickle cell anemia, the reason why the cells sickled was because in Western Central Africa, there's lots of mosquitoes and they carry malaria. And what we
Mm-hmm.
would do, well, how the cell evolved was that it would go into the shape of like a sickle, like a kind of a
Yeah.
flattened cell, which stops the malaria being able to survive and spread.
Right. Yeah.
But at the time that it was doing that, we were eating electrical foods, right? So we were eating electrical foods and we were getting enough iron to be able to maintain a high amount of energy. We were also getting enough sun to nourish our melanin to stimulate the production of D. Now we removed the sun from our diet, we removed the electrical foods from our diet, and we removed the iron from our diet. So now you have no energy. And that's all it
You
is.
got that right. I'm always sleepy and tired.
Right, because you're eating cooked food,
Yeah.
starchy food. Uh, there's a lot of our people who are eating dairy, mucus producing foods. A lot of people are
Yeah.
eating fried food, hydrogenated food, etc., etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
You need to put the sun back in your diet. You need to put electrical foods back in your diet every day. And you need to put back into your diet a
Gotta
lot
buy some more fruits and roots.
a more raw foods.
Raw.
Remove starch,
That's
more electrical foods, more sun, and your sickle cell will go away. If you need uh, iron, like extra iron, then you can have burdock root,
I've been
you
taking that.
vervain, you can have
Mm-hmm.
uh, sarsaparilla, and
Okay.
you can have cacao fruit.
Cacao. Oh,
Those things will put lots of iron in your diet.
okay. Do you believe like it will like all the way go away?
Yeah, because it was an evolution. It wasn't a devolution. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't evolve to have ourselves sickle so that we could be sick forever.
Mm-hmm.
We had it so that we would stop being sick.
Right.
But it
True.
just worked when you're snatched out of Africa with a
Mm-hmm.
tropically adapted skeleton, taken to a non-tropical climate, no sun. You're on somebody else's diet, somebody else's culture, somebody else's time. Like,
I mean,
say
that
for
one is kind of my parents' fault. I'm African, so they snatched
yeah,
me away.
you're back home, but
Yeah.
you get back home, sickle cell will go away.
Yeah. I'm trying to, by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, Ghana will be my new home.
Well, I'll see you there.
Okay. Thank you.
Why?
Yo, man, how you doing, bro?
Yeah, man, you're good. Wagwan.
Good to hear, man. Good to hear, man. I kind of wanted to share a theory on something if you're interested.
What's the theory on?
About North Africa on the cultural assimilation of the indigenous people that are there by the Arab culture that has kind of invaded what is North Africa today.
How far,
What did you say?
I said, how far are you going back?
Um, Way, but I don't know exactly. Let's say pre-6th century, I think, before like first Arab contact.
Okay,
Um,
go
so
for it.
basically, I have quite a lot of North African friends, but they never agree on my theory because they say white people can be indigenous to North Africa, which I don't believe. That's bullshit. Africa is the
Too,
beginning place. Pardon?
it's too hot.
Yeah, it's the birthplace of all of everything that started, and white people, it's a recessive gene, so how can that come from the place where all the dominant genes came from? So basically what I believe is North Africans in general have also been conditioned to believe that they are more Arab than they actually are by the Arabs that have invaded them. And basically North Africans to me are diluted Africans, very, very fine diluted Africans, because you need to imagine how often North Africa has been conquered by the Romans, the Greek, the Spanish, the French, the Ottomans, the Arabs. Once you put all of these white nations and they go all over North Africa, you're going to get a whiter African, see what I mean? But the more south you go in North Africa, the more closer you get to the roots of it, because there's black Moroccans, black Algerians there, but we never speak about those. We always speak about the whiter side of North Africa. So I'd like to hear what your take is on that situation.
Um, so Nubia, Kemet, Kush, these are all original, organic, Nubian, African, black African cultures. The people of Kemet, they said that they came with the land of the gods. They came from the land of the gods, which was Puntland, which was Somalia and Ethiopia. So that was south, right? If you look at Sudanese people who were called Nubians, because of the land, the Arabs called it the land of gold, so they called it Nubia. You have Nilotic people, blue-black people, South Sudanese people. They're so black,
Yeah,
right? We know there's more pyramids in Nubia or in Sudan than there are in Egypt.
yeah,
Egypt was predated by Sudan, right? These are black people. So the first people who created, one of the most significant civilizations were dark-skinned black people. Then what happened? Well, Egypt rose and it became a metropolis because of where its position is in the center of the world, and
yeah,
everybody moved from there. And then it started to divide amongst itself. And all the Greeks that were going there to study, all the Romans that were going there for business and trade and to train their soldiers, all of the Arabs that were going there, the Caucasian Arabs, because you also have to make a distinction between African Arabs and Caucasian Arabs. There's
all right,
two.
so question. Can you define what an African Arab is for me, please? Because I always seemed confused about who the Moors exactly were because they were described as black Arabs.
Yeah, so the Moors were a original dark-skinned North African people, which were comprised of Berberers, so the Bedouin people,
Yeah,
the travelers, but also there were people from Mali. There were people from Sudan who were also Moorish people who went on to uh, go from Morocco to Spain and Portugal and teach the Mediterranean cultures hygiene and maths and architecture, etc., etc. The Caucasian Arabs were invaders, right? These were the people that forced Abrahamic religion on North Africa and Northeast Africa through the trans-Saharan trafficking of Africans,
yeah,
which there were Africans, dark-skinned Africans, who were complicit in this, but there were also lots of dark-skinned Africans who were taken as eunuchs. So basically, the way that the trans-Saharan slave trafficking worked was, out of every five men that were taken, one would survive. So there was millions that were actually killed, because what they would do when they would take them is they would cut off their testicles, cut off their penis, and make them
Yeah.
eunuchs, so that they could be military soldiers to serve in the Muslim holy wars. And this is how they converted a lot of people to Islam. They took so many people from the 6th century to the 8th century that in 869 there was actually, in what is now Iraq, there was an
Yeah.
uprising, the Zanj, Zanj uprising, where Africans overthrew the government and became the government for about 14 years. The battle was so huge, it involved 500,000 people at the time. In the 7th century, that's a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And that's how many people they were taking. And so made it so that the women that were taken were not taken to be anything apart from house servants and sex slaves. So they were being cleaners, house servants, and they were being concubines, sex slaves for the Muslim, Arab, Caucasian Arab Muslim men's harems, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people were actually converted to Islam. There's this whole story, Muhammad ran away to Africa, and he was taken in by the Ethiopians, and he freed Bilal, who was black, and Bilal was the first black to give a call to prayer. And so we're supposed to sit here and be like, oh, thank you, for letting us give a call to prayer in our own fucking countries. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense to me when people tell me that for me to experience my God, I have to learn a foreign language. That doesn't
Yeah.
make no. There are Africans were also pioneers of Arabic language, because Arabic is actually a Semitic language, and the first Semitic people were Ethiopians, were Sudanese, were
Exactly. See, that's the thing. When I discuss it, for example, with family members who the first Semitic people were, um, the first thing they think of is not black people. See what I mean? But the Semitics, just like when we talk about the Jews of today, the white Jews, those aren't the real original Jews, the real original Hebrew people. Those were Ethiopians or Abyssinians, as it was called in that time. And it's the same with the first people who actually went to North Africa, because North Africa used to be under the sea first. And when it rose above the waters, people from the Horn of Africa went there, and either they became the Tuareg tribes, which are one of the Berber tribes with the oldest haplogroups, which is where the original Berbers came from. And eventually they started diluting, mixing with the Greeks, which became the Cabal tribes, if
and
I'm not mistaken.
amazing as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's a beautiful people, and you can see that they trek everywhere from Mali and all those places. You can see the ancient caravan routes that they actually took through North Africa, which they still follow. But uh, then people always try to say, yeah, but there's white Amazighs too, there's white Berbers too, there's white, which I think aren't the real ones, or either they've been diluted so far that the blackness has been completely erased from that gene pool.
Well, it's just like when they say there's white Jamaicans. All right. It's just like, all right, they were,
All
hey,
I think is a white dude with dreads or something, you know? That's all I think of when you say a white Jamaican.
or a white South African person. All right. So why have you got cancer when you live there? Because of the sun.
That's the thing in Israel and Australia, and in Israel they say those were the original Jews there. How come Israel is the highest rate of skin cancer in the whole of the world, and followed by Australia? And they want to say that those are the original people. That's not right, fam. I think it was, and this is a weird quote I'm going to make, but somewhere Hitler said Israel went wrong when the blacks left and the whites came in,
Mm.
which clearly insinuates that Israel was a black nation. And I don't know when it became fucked up that the white people started colonizing it and calling themselves the true Jews, when in reality, I think they're Eastern European Jews that actually moved into Israel and claim to be the original people, when it's far from that.
If you want to go back, it wasn't Israel, it was Palestine or Palestine. And
Palestine, yeah.
if you want to go back further, us people who explored that area of the world were called the Badarians and the Gerzians. They were the first people, and they were black people. This was 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So the first people documented in that area of the world, it's just like John Henrik Clarke says, it's like, how the hell can Europeans say that they're pioneers of civilization when, you know, and they went all the way down to Egypt and built the pyramids, but went to Europe and they didn't build a house or
The thing
or
about pyramids is people will try to discredit anything that black people made, to the extent of saying it might have been aliens that made the fucking pyramids. Like, there's conspiracy theorists and then there's those conspiracy theorists, see what I mean? But I think something that's overlooked is the African Golden Age, which is what we're never taught. And the Nubians had a sort of science and technology that was so advanced, but it was all erased, that we will never get to that level, because the pyramids were built in such a way and such a short time frame that we, with our minds, couldn't think is possible for the tools and the resources they had in that time. So clearly they were doing something better than us, and all of that has been erased.
well, could you imagine if Africa wasn't colonized?
Bro,
Because creation and diversity within Africa itself, in terms of cultures, languages, and sharing of intelligence and human relationships, would have meant that Africa would be there would be a United States of Africa. Maybe there wouldn't, but Africa would definitely be leading the
the
world in
economic powerhouse of the world, at least.
these things, right? It would be a superpower, or there'd be all of the superpowers would be there, because what determines a world is a superpower now? Well, nuclear weapons, and all the minerals come from Congo. It's not that far from Egypt. It's not that far from Ghana, but it's definitely far from the USA.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Wait,
me?
you were lacking for a second. What did you just say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so what I'm saying is that Congo is where all the plutonium and uranium comes from, and what determines a country as a superpower is its nuclear weapons or its nuclear cache. Egypt and Ghana, Nigeria, and Ethiopia is not that far away from Congo, because Congo's right in the center of Africa. But Congo's far away from China, it's far away from Korea, and it's far away from Russia and far away from the USA. But these are the biggest
Yeah.
superpowers based on African mineral resources. And I think that if you look at, there's a book that you can read called A Star of Deep Beginnings by
Star
Charles,
of the beginnings.
yeah, by Charles Finch, MD. And his book proves with conclusive evidence that the Sphinx is actually 5,000 to 6,000 years older than it is said, because there's water markings at the bottom of the Sphinx.
Yeah.
That the Nile was further up, and back in the day, 6,000 years ago, the Sahara was actually a swamp, right? And if that's true, and the Sphinx is a barometer of African architecture within that region, then everything else is way older. So there's lots of technologies that have been buried, because if you look at, for instance, where do you live now?
I live in the Netherlands, man.
Right. So if you look at the Netherlands, which is a relatively flat country anyway, if you
Swamp.
look at the Netherlands, what is there now in the Netherlands in 3,000 years, there would have been 3,000 years worth of civilization built on top of it, right? So
Yeah,
what
yeah,
in Egypt, right, in the Giza in particular, has 3,000 years of shit built on top of it. So of course it's going to be difficult. They're still finding pyramid stones in
yeah.
Cairo right now, taken off the Great Pyramid and by the Arabs and used to build people's houses. So
And
they're
I think
still digging underground and finding tombs underneath their houses. So of
and
course you
the
are.
sad thing is they actually burned down the biggest library of Africa, which would have had so much knowledge for us to learn from. And something else I learned interestingly about the pyramids is
Mhm.
the stones they were made with is a type of stone that is able to absorb sunlight and convert it into usable energy. Now, how the fuck would people of that time be able to have technology like that and have wireless energy to be able to sustain their city? That's just wow, then all this knowledge is lost.
Well, I mean, it's been replicated. Look what Tesla did with the Wardenclyffe Towers. The limestone casing that was on the outside of the pyramids. I've been to the pyramids. The limestone casing that was on the outside of the pyramids was actually a conduction system, which they said that they found 50-ton and 100-ton granite sarcophagi in the
Yeah,
center of the Great Pyramid. But really, what they found was batteries because there was no bodies there, right?
books.
Yeah, we have in Luxor, the Valley of the Kings, we have in the temples inscribed etched into the temple walls men, it looks like men with big light bulbs, holding big light bulbs with a big wire going from the light bulb down to what looks like big batteries, right? Underneath, it was actually an aquifer. Underneath the Great Pyramid used to run the River Nile, right? And what we found is that coming out of the walls in the pyramid, there's copper rods, right? The copper rods were linked down to the aquifer where the Nile was rushing underneath, and that was causing friction, sending electricity up the copper rods to be stored in these batteries.
That's fucking
That
crazy, man.
assumes there was never there was never an embalmed king or queen found anywhere near there. So they weren't tombs, and the Library of Alexandria was actually destroyed by Napoleon so that they could take all of the documents and stick them in the underground in the Vatican, in the catacombs. So it
Oh,
was
so they actually took
destroyed.
the knowledge.
Yeah, there were ships full of scriptures going to Rome.
I thought they just burned everything down because they didn't want people to know that black people or Africa on that time were a more civilized people than Europe ever was in history.
Right. Well, so is
Because I
life.
think
But
Napoleon was
sorry,
also responsible for the cutting off of the noses and the lips of the Sphinx too, right?
well, not just Napoleon. There were loads of them doing it. Like, look at Egyptology and Francois Champollion, who actually created a whole genre of study and subject to basically marginalize African achievements so that they could Europeanize African achievements. So
Yeah.
that's what it was about. It was about taking what they knew to be true, which was documented by the people who existed in those times. So they were actually self-identifying and self-documenting what they were doing. And then they were like, we're going to steal that, we're going to hide it, we're going to reinvent it. And while we're reinventing it, we're going to say that you ain't shit and you got slaves. Then when they've stolen it for long enough for people to make a disconnect, then they're going to start saying it was aliens, it was somebody else. They're going to come and they're going to repaint tombs, and they're going to repaint temples with whole painting teams and forensic archaeological teams, and paint them so that they're not brown anymore. They're not
Yeah.
even, they're pale brown. And then they're going to say that, Egyptians were Caucasians. And that's what they did. It was a whole marketing campaign.
It's crazy how scientists get paid off, how archaeologists just get paid off to depict Egypt as an Arab nation or they're olive-skinned people when clearly the people who are there now are either diluted or just not the original people, man.
I went out by that pyramid, and with all of my melanin, I felt my skin lifting up. So I don't know about how they would do. Oh, this thing says I got uh 10 seconds remaining.